recently acquired some DMT, and after much experimentation, I had a desire to experience a longer trip. I knew that MAOIs were typically used for this, but not having any at my disposal and my reluctancy of buying some from an unknown source online, I started looking for other methods of prolonging a trip. I started doing research on what could possibly help with this, and came across an article that said that DXM worked as a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Already knowing that DMT worked by binding to two of the serotonin receptors, it sounded like in theory this could help the trip last longer. After searching around, I found very few reports of this combination, and none of them gave me a good idea what to expect, so I figured I was going into uncharted territory by combining the two. I had done DXM many times in the past, up to the point where I had developed a huge tolerance, and the drug had seemed to have lost its magic. I figured that 711 milligrams would be good for this combination, so I went out and bought an 8-ounce bottle of generic tussin D+0. Later that night, I warmed up a shower, emptied the tussin bottle into a bottle with a larger mouth, and proceeded to chugging the foul liquid. I felt more nauseous than usual after taking the DXM, but I was determined not to puke and have to repeat the process again another time. After the shower, I went into my room and began waiting for the substance to take effect. D+40 minutes. I feel the DXM coming on pretty strong at this point and the nausea continued to get worse. I put on some music, which normally would sound amazing to me on DXM, but instead sounded rather odd this time, so I turned it off after only listening to one song. I decide to surf the internet waiting for the DXM to peak. D+1 hour. It seems like I have stopped peaking, and the nausea also seems to have gone away, but I decide to wait another 20 minutes before I smoke the DMT, to make sure the serotonin reuptake was fully inhibited. I joined an IRC channel at this time to ask if anyone had any advice on this combination, but no one had any information. D+1 hour and 20 minutes. I turn off my TV and computer screen, and turn on my bedside lamp. I took out my scale and weighed out 15 milligrams of DMT, not wanting to overdo it. I load it into my freebase pipe, and take a bit of time to clear my mind and prepare myself. Once I felt mentally prepared, I put the pipe to my lips, put the flame under the bulb, and start slowly inhaling. The DMT seemed to taste rather odd as I inhaled, but I kept taking in the smoke until it felt like my lungs were full. I figured I should only take one big hit at first as to not overdo it, which I soon realized was a good decision. As soon as I took the lighter away and put the pipe down, I immediately felt the drug taking effect. I held in the smoke for as long as I could, and then exhaled. I experienced euphoria unlike any I had ever experienced before, and heard a ringing begin that was slowly strobing, which steadily began to strobe faster and faster. The ringing continued strobing faster until it became so fast it now sounded like a continuous ringing. My vision fixated on my wall, which had changed from its usual blue color to a light orange color. My vision then started slowly strobing, which was something I had never experienced with DXM or DMT on their own. The strobing became faster and faster, until I could no longer focus on anything. It was at this point, something changed. I suddenly got the feeling that something was terribly wrong, and something in my head just didn't feel right. As this was happening, a feeling of dread came over me, because I had no idea what was happening, until finally, the strobing instantly stopped. At this time I thought that I may have died, because I have never experienced anything like this, or read about anything such as this in any trip report. I began to hear many very strange sounds, along with voices that were rapidly saying things that at the time I understood, but I would forget as soon as I came down. As I looked around, every time I moved my eyes, all of my surroundings would change into something else. Instead of the normal fractals and waviness I would experience with low doses of DMT, everything seemed to be constructed of basic geometric shapes. My vision seemed, for lack of a better word, electronic. One thing that stood out among these hallucinations was what seemed to be a large metallic structure that went up one side of my room, across the ceiling, and back down the other side of my room. I looked at my dresser and noticed all the drawers were in different places than they normally were, and the knobs were constantly moving from drawer to drawer. Every time I would look away and back at my dresser again, the drawers would all be in different places. This kept my attention until my vision started strobing again, until it was very rapid, and again, instantly stopped. D+1 hour and 30 minutes. I realized I was back in my room, that I hadn't died, and that everything seemed to be back to normal, except for a change in colors that was still noticeable. I had a very strong vibration feeling going through my body after this, and noticed a very loud humming, which I soon realized was my computer, which was normally inaudible. I laid in bed reflecting on the trip, as the sound, vibration, and color slowly returned to normal. I turned my computer monitor back on, and reported back on the experience to the people in IRC. I continued to browse the internet some more, until I decided to take another hit of DMT now that I had an idea on what to expect. D plus 1 hour and 50 minutes. Seeing as there was still some DMT left in the pipe, I hit that instead of putting some fresh spice in. I had an onset almost exactly the same as my first hit, only slightly less intense, and without the feeling of dread. After my vision stopped strobing again from the onset, I began to look around and take in my surroundings in this new reality once again. I looked up on the storage shelf in my room, but instead of seeing my normal collection of books and other items, there was simply a large green bar that blocked everything. I noticed the large metallic structure had returned, and it appeared to be made of large steel girders, with the girder on the ceiling having a downward bend in it. I looked in my closet where the dresser was, expecting to see the drawers rearranging themselves again, but instead only saw white on the inside of the closet. As I looked inside my closet, I saw what seemed to be many different sceneries begin to appear, but each one only seemed to last a fraction of a second. While looking at these, I became completely unaware of my surroundings, until the white area started tilting forward, until it crashed down on my bed and vanished, revealing my closet and making me aware I was in my room once again. With the inside of my closet visible once more, I noticed the dresser again switching its position of its drawers and knobs. I watched this for a while longer, until the strobing of my vision began again, which made me realize the trip was coming to a close. D plus 2 hours. The strobing has ended, and again I feel a very strong vibration going through me, which slowly went away. Feeling that I should probably give my brain and body a rest from testing a relatively undocumented combination, I put my pipe and DMT away. I put some music on to see if I would enjoy it now, but it still sounded too odd to me, so again I turned it off after listening to only one song. I lie back in bed and close my eyes, to see if I can once again have the sevs I once had with DXM, but unfortunately only saw blackness. D plus 2 hours and 30 minutes. After exhausting things to do while tripping, other than taking more DMT, I decide to go to sleep. In conclusion, my failed attempt to increase the length of a DMT trip led me to discover an incredibly intense combination. Although I was stricken with fear with the first hit of DMT, it was an amazing combination unlike anything I had ever experienced. The only thing I could possibly relate to this would be a dream, due to amazing detail of the hallucinations, the obscurity of them, and how they seemed to cover everything. Although it was amazing, I don't plan on doing it again anytime soon, mainly because of the overwhelming intensity of it. I'm also glad I had been experienced enough with DXM and DMT, as I could see this could be terrifying for someone inexperienced.